Teacups, what's brewing? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking over Chantal's live, what was it called? Sam is coming home, which I had heard hint of through her community post, but she actually addressed it today. Was looking at myself in the viewfinder and I was like, what's different? Why is it so shadowy? Didn't have the light on, didn't have the ring light on, now I'm back. Welcome. It's been a few days since I reacted, or recapped even. Her uploads have been weird recently. The one with the ships, I was like, oh, I could see the interest from like an Urban Decay photography kind of thing, but there was a high percentage of Salah that I just wasn't willing to entertain. Although I will say, wow, Foodie was struggling with the heat. Now, it started to get hotter in Oman, but we're nowhere near where we were when I arrived in August of last year. Like, it gonna get worse. Right now, we're sitting around the 30-32 mark. I don't know what the real feel is, which is usually higher because the humidity is also ramped up, but really starting to feel it. Even when I'm like walking over from my home to school, which is quite early in the morning because I usually get there around 7, and it just, you're feeling the difference immediately. And if she's struggling now, give it another 2 weeks and she's just going to be crying. But anyway, not to get sidetracked, because no doubt I'm going to need time to get sidetracked later. Let's move into the live she did about Sam. Sam is coming home. It starts well when someone super chats her animal abuser, and Chantal smiles and says thanks, and Salah says only $2, which is like an echo of Chantal. When he gets the weird Chantal voice, you can tell that she has explained things to him and he is trying to keep her happy for whatever reason. So he's just like, he's willing to be the reflection of whatever she is online, really. But I tell you now, I don't care how well his discount perfume business is doing, neither of them is financially secure enough to be making fun of people giving them free money on the internet. Particularly when you consider when I was starting to watch this video, which was late. I wasn't here live because I was going to school. I got a job to do. It was at 5.3k views in like 8 hours, I believe it was. So her views haven't been massively high, even though it was a live and it was on quite a contentious subject. Now, this is partly because her channel is actively dying, and partly, I think, because of the time difference, and so people just weren't all up then, which may have been on purpose on her part, because she was hoping to not have to deal with as many, even though she does want the viewers. And she kind of teases that in the very beginning, when she's like, no, I'm going to wait and eat this thing, I'm going to wait and get my shisha first, because she's waiting for more people to come in. And it did seem like chat was running a little bit slow. Like I say, I wasn't there live, but it didn't seem like there was much going on. She does reference that she's doing a mukbang later. Her mukbangs recently have been weird. The one she's doing outside, she can't really mukbang the way she used to. The weird silent one she did, or ASMR one she did, I can see what she's trying to do. There is a market, I suppose is the best word, for that kind of style, because a few big YouTubers do that. It also reminded me quite a lot of, well, it didn't remind me, but her attempt reminded me of the style. I don't know if you guys have ever seen, like, there's a whole sort of industry is the wrong word, subgenre, I'm not sure what word I'm looking for, branch of videos that are kind of cozy feel, where I used to watch one called Plan D, and it's this South Korean girl, and she is also, she sews and she makes clothes and things, and they show cooking and they show eating, and you know, it's all very tastefully shot, and you only ever really see the face from kind of here, and that kind of vibe. But Chantal isn't likable or delicate or cozy enough to pull that off. So it actually reminded me I hadn't seen her channel for a while, that Plan D, so I might go back and see what's up. But you get the sense that's kind of what she was going for, but it just came off as odd. And I mean, to be fair to her, to her credit, it got her more views than I think that mukbang would have got, because it wasn't pleasant to watch particularly. I don't think she has an audience for mukbangs anymore on her channel. I think she lost what little audience she had for that. I think she lost it. And there was no reason, if that was what you were there for, the really hardcore, I want everything to be quiet and just to listen to the food, you wouldn't have stuck around. But that's not something that's going to work more than once, really, because the novelty of it is what attracted the attention. So if she does it again, people are going to be like, oh, it was this, I'm not getting tricked by that again, and they're just not going to watch. She mentions a little the backlash she got for visiting Salah's mom's grave, which was another thing that I was a little bit uncomfortable with, and I was like, I don't want to cover this right now, which is why I didn't get into that. But wow, that was quite a video. But she does get back into that a little bit later, so there's no point going through it right now, but we'll touch on it again then. She gets another super chat insulting them, tries to instigate. You remember before she was like, if it's less than 15, I'm not reading it. She tried to say like, oh, well, at least send me 10, otherwise I'm not acknowledging it. And I was like, by saying that, you're acknowledging it. And you don't have the pulling power to command a $10 or $15 super chat to insult you anymore. There was quite a funny conversation about her recently discovered sock account. Not another halal doll, though. So based on the screenshots that have been going around Twitter, she's got this sock account and it's got a picture of like a Muslim girl in the what's the word? In the little circle, the avatar, the icon, whatever. Which I guess if she's making a sock account, she wants to make it look like she's got more support from the Muslim community. So, yeah, of course you get a nice Muslim girl. Look, oh, Chantal, I love you. But there were some screenshots going around of her replying as Chantal, but underneath that account. So someone complimenting Chantal and her saying, thank you. And then it being the halal doll account, which, whoops-a-daisy. But she seriously sat there and was like, no, it wasn't me. It's not a sock account. I get to have at least one supporter. It was very unconvincing. I don't think she even believed herself with that one. She knows she was caught, but whatever. She lies for the sake of lying half the time. Maybe she was just trying to draw up a little bit more outrage. Be like, look, she's a liar. But everybody knows that it stopped being audacious a while back. She did say, oh, I've only had 1 or 2 sock accounts on YouTube ever. I'm sorry, how many has she been caught red-handed with just in the last year or 2? Come on now. You can tell us a lot of stuff, but come on now. A few people joined her Budget Visa tier, and she was like, oh, I'm glad that tier is making people join. I'd be more concerned about where those people are coming from. Because on one hand, yeah, it's cheaper than sending you super chats. So she hasn't really thought that through, I suppose, because if £2 is the minimum for a super chat, but now they can get it for 1, what's she achieving? But it does give the opportunity for everyone to come down from the more expensive tiers to the cheaper ones. So I don't think it's going to work out for her financially, but when has she ever had financial sense? Speaking of no financial sense, she does talk about her not wanting to cook and her eating out is cheaper. But guys, the number she had the audacity to throw at us, right? So she says in Canada, I was about to say in Kuwait, in Canada, that she spent $2,500 to $3,000 a month on food, eating out every day, which is about what we estimated. I think she'd admitted to $3,000 before, and it makes sense with what she used to order, right? So the idea that Kuwait ends up being cheaper than Canada, I can understand in the sense of she cannot indulge herself as much there as she could in Canada. She doesn't have to pay for all the weed and the gummies. And when she orders meals, even when she orders a big meal, she can't order 2 because Salah is watching or Salah goes to get the meal. And recently he's been making more and more comments, and he does it here at the end of this live stream, like when he's like, are you serious? When she's like, I'm hungry after eating something, and he's like, no, I'm not hungry, I'm full. And he really can't believe that she would say that. So even when she gets to eat what she wants, she only gets to eat 1 of them. Whereas most of the time when she would order food in Canada, not only would she pay delivery, whereas Salah seems to be more happy to go and get stuff and give it to her, then she would also usually order like 2 meals. So just by volume and type alone, she probably is saving money. But she's sitting there telling us she spends about $400 a month on food there. And I'm sorry, but absolutely not. Not if she's ordering out every day, because she says if I order out every day, it'd be $400. Absolutely not. And because I'm petty, I'm stubborn, and I know it not to be true, I did go and look. So I looked on Telebat, which is the food delivery service they have in Kuwait, just to get an idea of costs. Because at the time she was drinking a coffee and she was sharing like I think it was a pistachio cream pancake. And those kinds of foods, they're available everywhere. Like a lot of the kind of cafe culture, all of that stuff is available, but you pay the price for it. And the price is comparable or more than home because they're importing all this stuff a lot of the time. Now, we don't know where she got that particular meal from, so it might not be in this case, but prices are comparable for sure. And when it comes to the fast food and things, she's eating at American star restaurants that have come into the Middle East, and that's costly. We saw that when she went to like TGI's and stuff. Like, it doesn't get cheaper because it's there. When you look at like satisfaction ratings for expats and living in different places, Kuwait often will come at the bottom as one of the worst places for expats to live. And part of it is that reason. Like, it's not that great, there's not that much choice, people are considered to not be as welcoming or as friendly, and it's kind of expensive to live there. But we know that Chantal does not understand how currency exchange works very well, so she sees the smaller number and she's like, it's cheaper, even though that's not how that works. But I looked on Talabat anyway, and if you assume that she's eating out, so bear in mind, like today she got a coffee. It was a hot coffee. I'm going to assume some kind of latte or cappuccino because that's kind of what she does. She got that pastry thing, and she did a KFC mukbang later that day. I don't know if she filmed it the same day, but it's not unrealistic to say she eats out like that twice a day. Even if she does like one junky meal and then one kind of breakfasty, I had a coffee and some kind of pastry or breakfast. Because bear in mind, she said she's hungry immediately after the live stream, or as the live stream is ending, she's getting more insistent. So she's going to go and get more food. So to say they eat out 2 or 3 times a day is not an extraordinary idea. And it would be in keeping with her past behavior, even if it's a more controlled portion, because she has big meals, but she doesn't have multiple meals. So even if we take one of her meals to be her very healthy fried fish and rice, which he says is very cheap, I'm going to assume about 2 KD. If you think of coffee like that is like 2 1/4, like 2 KD for a big pile of whatever would be a decent price. And so we'll just estimate, I don't know for sure. So I looked that up and I was like, together, that's about 10 Kuwaiti dinar, something like that. Just over, I think it was. So I did the conversion, and rather than it being 90 Kuwaiti dinar a month, which is what she was estimating when she said 400 Canadian dollars, it actually ends up being closer to like 1400, just over. Now, that's still a hell of a lot cheaper than she was spending in Canada, but it's nowhere near what she thinks she's spending. And this is why she's got such problems with finances. She has no real idea what her money does at all. And that's not to say they're not buying food into the apartment, but the stuff they're buying is just crap. She says that she usually makes like indomie or chicken nuggets, but we also saw Chantal and Salah go out to grocery shop and get a ton of snacks and a ton of chocolate bars, and they weren't local ones. I'm sure they do some local ones, but the ones we saw when he got, I think it was just him shopping, and he got like those 60 chocolate bars, even if they're reasonably cheap, which if they're imported, they're not going to be that cheap. They won't be that expensive, but they're not going to be that cheap. That's 60 chocolate bars. Like, that adds up. So their groceries aren't exactly on the frugal side, and they're still eating out a lot. I realise this is not really the big talking point of this live, but goddamn, if you're going to lie to me, do it better. Assume I'm not as stupid as you are. Do it better. So we move on to Sam Ownership 2.0, as she puts it. She starts by defending her previous treatment of the cat, saying that we have the impression that she doesn't care an ounce about her cat. That's never been my issue. My issue, and weirdly, she uses this as a defense for her, like it makes her better. She's like, no, I've always loved my cats. I don't deny that she gave her cats affection. She loved them in a very simplistic, very childish way of, no, 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 kiss, kiss, look, I love them. But while not caring for most of their practical needs. And she argues later, well, FFG, she doesn't care, and BBJ could be in an abusive situation and you don't know because she's still trying to push that and turn those tables. And she says, like, yes, but taking care of a cat isn't just taking her on vet's visits. You need to love her. You need to give her love. And I'm like, actually, the truth is somewhere in the middle. If you're going to have a living thing that you're responsible for, you need to take care for their physical and emotional well-being. There is a compromise somewhere between the two. But to hear her use what I've always considered to be the problem as defense for her solution, like, it's just crazy. It's crazy to me. And, you know, it's nothing new, and she will take it to the grave. But she was like, no, but I loved them. It's like, yes, but you didn't care for them. Then we get on to this very sus thing. I'm sorry, but the person we rehome Sam to had to pass him off to a foster place. I would like some explanation. We didn't get much information about who was taking Sam, but it seems very odd that they would suddenly foster him. And it makes me think, wait, did she just give it to a foster person? And then now she's changed her mind and she's like, no, I can get him back. Because the person who took Sam hasn't had him for very long. And Sam doesn't seem to have any major behavioral problems. You know, like environmental issues, sure, but that's not on the cat. Now, Chantal wasn't forthcoming with the details, but the fact that she wasn't forthcoming with the details makes me think, I wonder what the situation with Sam really was. She says he's going to be happy here. There's a lot of steps to get him to here first, but he's like a winter cat. He's a Maine Coon? I can't remember exactly, but he's a cat designed for deep winter. Canada is a good environment for him. That is gonna be difficult in the climate. And she hasn't got a big place, you know? Like, the place she has is completely stuffed to the gills with stuff. She does talk about them maybe getting a bigger place, but I don't think it's gonna be a great combination of already not enough space, a hamster, and Sam. And all of that in the middle of the Kuwaiti summer. Now, she seems really unsure about how they're gonna get him there, whether she should go and go get him, or if she should pay a company, but that means they have to do certain things before. I was trying to look through the requirements. It does seem quite complex, but one thing I will say, it's going to be massively expensive for her to get a transport service, and she would still need to ensure that she had all the paperwork in place. Like, they need a permit from the Kuwaiti side, which they have to pay for. They need the cats to be vaccinated. Now, later, she says, no, he was vaccinated. After Timbits got feline leukemia, they were vaccinated. And I was like, but they separated Timbits because they weren't vaccinated. So they isolated Timbits into Pete's place, because I remember that being a big point of discussion where we were like, why would you not take your other cats to go get vaccinated against this? And I don't remember her saying then that Sam was. I could be wrong on that because I haven't gone back through to find it, and she's privated so much stuff anyway, but I feel like he wasn't. That's my deep feeling there. But pet shipping is going to be a lot, and it's going to require a lot of organization before she can even get to that point. Now, in terms of cost, a lot of the places I looked at say you have to like send an email and get a quote, which I wasn't willing to go that far. But there was an account of a lady, there's a site called expatwomen.com, and she brought her dog, her 20-pound dog, over. And I can't remember how big Sam is, but I think he's pretty big. So small dog size in terms of weight. And I think it would be pretty comparable. Now, the blog, is it a blog? I'm not even sure. The posting from it is from like 2017. So it's been a few years. But the procedure based on some more current websites seems about the same. But I imagine costs would only have gone up in the intervening years with everything going on. Air travel is more expensive and all of that. Now, I'll link that page down below so you can read it if you really want to know. But essentially, the lady found that it was cheaper to fly back and physically bring her pet with her as excess baggage in the hold than it was to get a shipping company to do it, because she was getting quoted $1,400 for the shipping company, and she would still have to do all the other stuff, like making sure the pet passport was in place and that kind of thing. But I went on to Qatar Airways, and Qatar Airways, for an animal up to 32 kgs, seemed to charge a flat fee of $455, which is way cheaper than I thought it was going to be. Now, obviously, that's not the only cost. That's literally, hey, you can put them in the hold. And there's a lot of complications in the sense of not all planes are suitable for live cargo, essentially. And the temperature can be quite difficult in, like, it's pressurized, but the temperature can get down quite cold. That shouldn't really be a problem for Sam because he is designed to be in colder winters, but it's a very long flight and it's a lot on a pet. And I also read that a lot of airlines won't take sedated animals because some of the courier companies were like, what about sedation in their FAQs? And they were like, yeah, it's not for the best. Especially because if they're flying, you don't exactly know how it's going to hit them, and it can be more traumatic, and a lot of airlines won't do it and stuff like that. So there's a lot of variables. But then in the comments of the site that I'll link, there was a lady that was like, can you tell me which courier company you went to? Because I've been quoted $4,500. So there seems to be a massive difference in how much it costs. Neither of them would be hassle-free for her, because she's still got to sort out him getting vaccinations. And some of them, like, she has to be careful with the timing. If she can afford to just get a company to do it and then sort of push her mom into getting the vaccines done, or God forbid, Pete. We're going to talk about Pete in a minute. My God, I'm almost kind of angry at him at this point, but I don't know the full scope of the situation, so it might not be a him thing. But things like rabies vaccines and stuff like that, they have to be done within a time frame, and she doesn't have that much time before she has to go back to Canada. So either she's going to stay in Canada a lot longer and deal with the time frames, or she's going to have to pay this company to kind of sort it out and give herself more time. Because she said, okay, well, now that I'm going to have Sam, we'll put off our travel plans, but she can't do that while she's on a tourist visa. And I won't go into all the reasons she is, but I still believe she is. And frankly, even with the assistance of a company, I don't think she has it in her to go through all the steps to make this workable, even if she had the finances and hired somebody, because there's parts she still needs to do. I think it would definitely end up being cheaper her just flying home and bringing the cat. But if she does that, she then takes on all the responsibilities of all the other paperwork, all the other procedures, all the other timeline, and having to make appointments and balance all of that, which I don't think she can do. I know physically she could get to the appointment, she could rent a car, do whatever. I don't think she has the mentality to be able to organise in the way she would need to and go at the time she would need to and all of that. Because as complicated as the visa stuff she didn't do is, so is this. This is essentially a visa for a pet, you know? It's the procedure to get them into a country, and it's equally complex. She also has no real idea of what she's going to do with the cat when she gets there. She says they'll kind of make it work. They might get a bigger place. She's like, maybe a harness so he can walk outside. And I'm like, walk outside? You won't even walk outside in the summer. Who's going to be walking your cat? I don't know. I think she's underestimated it. She hasn't thought it through, and it's going to cost more than she thinks. Which, hello, it's Chantal. What a shock. She's worried about the cat foster rehoming him, and so she's like, oh, I'm going to see if I can move him in with Pete. Yeah, you remember Pete? Her ex-best friend that she left in the lurch with all the costs of moving out of the villa because she decided to leave. And then he had to move into a bedroom in someone else's place because she didn't care what happened to him. He's a grown man. He's got to sort himself out, despite the assertions she made that she would be with him forever. Now, life plans can change, but she screwed him over when she left Canada and then left him to clean up the mess. And how he didn't just straight out tell her to go F herself, I don't know. I think he's kind of spineless. That will be the answer. So he hasn't said yes yet, but the fact that he was even willing to have the conversation, I don't know. Like, it's not something I would do. I really wouldn't. Now, she said, I don't know, we're going to see if we can have him in there, I'll buy these things. Can you imagine? He doesn't have that much space and she's going to fill it with all the cat stuff. And why would you trust Pete to look after the cat? By all accounts, he did a terrible job when you were away last time, because look at the state they were in. And then we saw the state that Timbits was living in. And she's like, I've told him you need to give them love. Well, I'm telling you, give them basic care first and then give them love. Because caring for them is a form of love. We move on a little bit to the fact that she's going to be doing mukbangs and she's going to be limiting her lives and her decision to not share personal things, even though this announcement comes right after she's talking about her mum as a teen mother and not feeling loved by her dad. So I was like, well, that's actually very personal, but it's the kind of personal stuff you're fine sharing because it might get you sympathy, but you don't want to talk about the stuff that might get you shit. But she's trying to punish us by not sharing personal stuff again that we might want to hear about. She said she's going to do mukbangs. She also says that the people watching are ignorant and don't go out their own door and don't know anything about the laws and don't have the experience. And this is all connected to the backlash she got about the graveyard. And she was saying that, you know, she was being respectful. She wasn't walking on the graves, even though didn't he warn her like twice not to do that? She didn't film like a ceremony that was happening, a funeral or anything. And I'm like, regardless of any of that, although I would argue the first part you were walking over graves, yes, it's Salah's mom, but the issue here really seems to be based on what the community has found about the laws in Kuwait. People have been told they're not allowed to film in graveyards. So it doesn't matter that, as she defends, there are people that go into graveyards. There are people that go into graveyards and show their headstones. I'm like, yeah, in countries where it's not illegal. And usually with those kinds of things, with people who've been dead for longer. It's not a modern graveyard. There's not living family that might be offended at having you film them. A lot of the time, I am making some assumptions there, but the kind of content of people going into gravestones is going to be different in the West than it's going to be there. It appears to be a sensitive subject there, and that's based on very little research, and that's research she could have done. And yes, it's Salah's family. So the decision to share that is, you know, whatever he's comfortable with, but you didn't only limit it to what we could see of Salah's mom's headstone. And the whole thing was incredibly awkward in general, but it just seemed very invasive. Invasive in the same way that them filming the prayers of the people in the mosque also seemed invasive. Like, there are some things that just don't really need to be content. And if you were talking about like, hey, here are the traditions of Eid, you could have mentioned, okay, part of it is, you know, visiting the dead. So we are going to go into Salah's mom's gravesite. You could have had that conversation without showing it, and it would have just completely removed the problem. And then she starts saying, oh, well, I don't think it's illegal. And it's like the oil fields, which is also definitely illegal to film. It's not like I went inside and I looked around, which is where the I didn't step on the graves comment came from. And you're like, no, you definitely did that. You were warned against it twice. But law is law, and Chantal doesn't get to be her own authority on how far she gets to stretch that law. Like, it is what it is. She shows a product from Salah's company again, and she mentions it and the price of it a lot in this stream because, like, since it was revealed that it's sold in a fairly cheap kind of discount store, it really hit a nerve, I think. She's pretty offended by the idea that people might think she's not well off because of where it's sold, because a lot of her self-worth is kind of tied up, like, in men, which she's got one now, supposedly, but also in the fact that she could always flash the cash. She could always kind of force a situation because she had the money to do it. And that was a feature that a certain type of person could easily be attracted by. And she used to say, you know, I don't understand why I attract all these guys. I don't understand why they all always want the same thing. Why do I always have to pay? I want a better caliber of guy. And I'm like, if you put out money as a bait, those are the kind of guys you're going to get. And she used that to her advantage many times. But how much she earns and how she lives, despite the fact that we can see everything she's showing us, it does actually matter to her. And I think she was embarrassed by it because she keeps bringing up the price. But I think the fact that it was found in that kind of store and then it was shown online did actually embarrass her. And, you know, she doubles down whenever she's embarrassed. But the idea that she was living this fancy life and being taken care of in Kuwait, it was punctured. Even though we have seen the apartment, we understand the condition she's living in, she wanted to maintain that air. And so long as we didn't see that storefront, she could, because we knew a little bit about the company, but a lot of it was speculation. And she does all of this while also saying, oh, I'm looking for an affordable option for Sam. There's going to be no affordable option there. It's going to be expensive no matter what you do. We go back to a few points that she's been to before. So there's a little bit of circling back around to other conversations, but that's really the main of it. It does end, like I say, with her being more and more insistent that she's hungry and him laughing at her. And I'm just like, perfect. No, that's the kind of relationship and support you want online. Although I suppose he supports and enables her in everything else, including the hate she puts out online. So what does he care? Okay, everybody, well, that was basically it. Thank you for being with me today. And depending on the kind of content she ends up putting out, I may see you again soon. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.